Good evening. Oh my God, that was a surprise to me. You're a ring wraith there for a second. Good evening, everyone. We are back and we are talking about The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, which isn't the 25th anniversary, despite what the thumbnail says. I'm just OCD and need all of the thumbnails matching. This is, well, it's probably closer to the 23rd anniversary at the moment, technically, isn't it? But anyway, we watched Fellowship last week, Two Towers booked this week, and of course, we've got Return of the King next week. This is your first time watching them on the big screen. We watched them, well, you watched them for the first time ever last year, just on my very humble 42-inch old school LCD TV. Had I have known that they were going to be put into the cinema that early on, probably would have waited and just, gone to see it when it came out. But I was really intrigued to see what you'd think about this now, because not only is this your first time seeing it on the big screen, but it's also your first time seeing the films since reading the book. So you've got even more in-depth knowledge about it now. You know how the book goes, so you've got that frame of comparison. So yeah, what were sort of your thoughts going into this one? Because you weren't too keen on this one, right? I mean, I think you still enjoyed it, but
yeah, I thought the movie was, I'm trying to think of a way to describe it, but I feel like it's centered on that one battle, really, isn't it?
Helm's Deep,
yeah. It's kind of less happens than in Fellowship, and it's very sort of like it's longer, but like it's more. It's that whole what middle stories sort of do. So I read a book before that was it was really good, but it sometimes dragged a little bit, only because it was sort of, there was a lot of battles and naval battles, and there was this, rather than the big exciting things that the first one had, where it was like, oh, there's these mystic powers here and this and that. It was just like, okay, now it's the naval battles and there's this, and which is obviously world building, but there's politics involved. It's kind of like that's what this kind of did, where it's that middle chapter where it's kind of, it shows you the world as it is and the whole how things have been affected. And it was just, as I say, I didn't dislike it. It was just a lot slower. It was, and we'd just come off Fellowship where there was a lot of stuff happening, a lot of mysticism, a lot of magic, and it was like, right, okay. And then, like I said, there was no ring wraiths in this. There was no, I mean, yes, they technically are in it, but basic, barely.
There's not, they're not as prominent as the first one.
It's just a lot slower, a lot more. Do you know what I mean? A lot more like war involved. Like that's when they started. From what I remember, I don't think they actually started talking like this at all in the first one, but it was like, I am, blah, 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 son of blah, like everyone got that kind of thing in this. That's where it all started, and it just felt a little bit more slower. I did prefer it this time around, but the book was better. The book was much better.
What I will say, I mean, Peter Jackson, I think, went on record saying that out of all three, Two Towers was the trickiest one and posed the most challenges in terms of
it was the one
adapting the story.
Change.
Well, yeah, and if you just look at the structure of the book, Fellowship is just very sequential, pretty much how the film depicts it as well. But as soon as you hit the beginning of Two Towers, the structure of the book completely changes in how it's told, in that we stay with one series of characters for a good long while, for maybe like 3-4 chapters or so, and then we'll cut to another batch of characters and we'll follow their story from A to B, and then it will go back. And book one is okay, this is going to be difficult to talk about. The first half of Two Towers, the book, is all Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and Merry and Pippin, and then the second half of the book is all Frodo and Sam stuff.
Yeah, I was not surprised, but when I read it, it was very like, when are we getting back to Frodo? Like, I was just, well, not like, I wasn't like waiting for it. I wasn't like, oh, I just want to get back to it, because it was a really good book. Two Towers is it's
my favorite of the three.
Yeah, it's hard to. I don't know if I prefer that or I prefer Fellowship. I think Return of the King is the weakest book. I don't know if I prefer Two Towers or Fellowship, but it's really, really strong. I do really like it. But what I mean is, like, because it wasn't until book two that you get back to Frodo. I was thinking, like, are we not getting back to him? Like, it was so different. It was, but book wise, it's so much better. But I do stand by all of them. They should not have been separated as three books. Should not. It's one thing.
Well, it was paper shortages post-war, wasn't it? And just the cost of publication.
They still would have done it today, though, wouldn't they? If it was someone's, because
probably.
Yeah, unless the Hobbit came out today and it was as popular as it was, then they would be like, okay, fine. But yeah, obviously, people don't like releasing long books like that. But it's yeah, I think Two Towers is very, very strong, much stronger book than movie. The movie was done as a whole, because obviously the pacing wise and being like shot, jump between this character to this character and these set of characters and all that sort of thing. It wanted to do that. And if they'd taken the structure of the book, it would have been very like, yeah, it would have felt. I think it just would have felt very different. It wouldn't feel like this movie that would go on an adventure with these characters. It feel like, okay, this bit's done. Now we're going to this, and it's like, this is one movie, but it would have felt like two, if that makes sense.
And I think the audience would have been used to the style
Yeah.
of Fellowship to then all of a sudden be turned on its head in the second film, where it doesn't really feel like a conventional film anymore. Because that's the thing that these films are having to do as well, is that they're having to obviously adapt Tolkien's works and whatever, but they've also got to make it like super accessible to the average moviegoer. And they were successful in that regard, becoming one of the arguably the best trilogy of all time.
One of the things Tolkien never did, he never made accessible to the average person. With loads of things I could say, like Scar and the Shire, loads of things that did not make it accessible, which is good, because I think the thing I really like is he got his vision across rather than, because you always come from, I mean, we've spoken about it before, where I was saying like, you know, I'd be writing something and I'd be like, but when it gets to editors going, you need to change this and change this, I'd be like, I don't want to, that's not how it's supposed to go. But then at the same time, they think profitability and sellability and all that. So I think it's really good that he was able to get that across still how he wanted it. It's like, but this happens like this. This is why it did. The only thing I don't agree with is, but like, this is the thing. It was supposed to be one book, okay, and it is one book, and that's how I read it. But because it was released as free, the Boromir death thing, like we spoke about, I just think it's like, why did that not translate into the end of book one? That was just a bit weird. But I guess it was again a vision thing of like an announcement. I don't know.
I do like the structures of each. I think they absolutely made the right call with what they did with the film, structuring it the way they did, still intercutting between all of the characters, just like any normal film. But I think what is lost with that is that I like that you sort of all the characters have that element of not knowing what's going on. They don't know what's happening to Merry and Pippin or Frodo and Sam, and you are in the shoes of that character.
Except when Aragorn goes all fucking Batman. All Batman detective, where he goes right over here, and then they walk this way. Like, it was literally...
He's a tracker.
No, but he's a
ranger.
Genuinely, like, literally, I was like, it feels like I'm watching fucking Batman. Like, he genuinely did, where he's just like, right over here. Then they walk this way, and they did. It felt so. Aside from that, yes.
But this especially comes into play when you get to Return of the King, where they get to the Black Gate, and the Mouth of Sauron comes out, and he holds up the mithril shirt, and he's like, "Oh well, you know, we're sorry, but Frodo's dead. Like, you know, he suffered greatly at the hands of his host, and here's the token, here's the proof that we killed him." When you're reading that for the first time in the book, you're probably like, oh my God, Frodo's dead, because you haven't got to the Frodo and Sam part of the story yet. But when you intercut that, there's not really any suspense. We know that Frodo and Sam's still alive because we just saw a scene with them like 10 seconds ago, and now the Mouth of Sauron's saying that Frodo's dead. So you do lose that element, but I think it is necessary for a film like
I've stopped buying that element ever in anything. Every time a character dies, I'm like, they're fucking not dead, are they?
Yeah, it's like, I need to see a body.
I was reading a book recently where a character died in some like big way, but I was like, don't buy it, really don't buy it. And they kept going on in the second one like they're dead. I'm like, I still don't buy it. But then you had a little thing at the end where they gave like character backstories and stuff, and it would have a little mark if they were deceased. I'm like, still don't buy it. But like, it was like, this character deceased, this one not, and I'm like, well, that one's supposed to be dead too. I'm like, I don't get what you're doing with me here, but I never buy it when a character's supposed to be dead. Never get, no.
So whenever I go and see these films again at the cinema, and as I mentioned last week, like, I've seen the Lord of the Rings films at the cinema a whole bunch of times. This isn't like this is this super exclusive, never been done before type thing. Obviously, I saw the films when they first came out, and then periodically they've re-released these films a bunch of times. I've seen them with live orchestra, like I've seen them on the big screen a good bunch of times. But I did notice a couple of extra little bits today that I haven't noticed before. I should say as well, we got the awful 4K transfer version for this one, and there's one scene where you can absolutely tell that you're watching the 4K version, and it's during the moment where Elrond's speaking to Arwen, and he's basically just saying that if you stay in Middle Earth, Aragorn's going to die, and you're going to be miserable, and you're going to die as well. And there's this beautiful shot in the Two Towers. It's actually my favorite shot from the movie. It's my favorite piece of cinematography from the entire Two Towers movie. And it's the bit where Arwen is in mourning, stood next to the tomb of Aragorn, as the camera pans out, and there's like all the dead leaves, and you know, it's winter or autumn or whatever it is. And like the color palette of the rest of the film, there's this sort of like very pale, like blue colors, like very cold colors in Two Towers, just the color temperature of the film. All of that is completely removed in the 4K version, and they bumped the desaturation down. It's like this black and white shot now, which looks really strange, and it's like they've put this really terrible blurred filter around the border of the screen, like this wavy blurry filter, and it ruined that shot for me. It was a gorgeous shot, like the framing, obviously the cinematography, but also the color temperature of it is completely removed. But then it cuts to a close-up of Arwen in that same scene, and it goes back to the blue hues from the original shot, and I'm like, well, why did you have to special edition change that? That would have been a conscious change made by Peter Jackson when he was overseeing the 4K transfer. And another scene that obviously gets hit as well is the Boromir flashback, the extended scene in Two Towers where Faramir's holding the Horn of Gondor, and it flashes back and shows you Boromir. They do the same thing, bump the desaturation down, and there's like this. It's like they've blurred the borders of the frame.
Yeah, that looks like a very flashbacky kind of thing, though.
Yeah, but it's not. I don't know why that's not used in. Actually, now I think about it, I think the 4K saturation and the color changes and whatnot were done to match the Hobbit films. And now I think about it, when there's some flashbacks in the Hobbit films, I do think they have that sort of hazy effect.
Gollum's eyes look shit in the Hobbit, though. Fucking hate them.
In the Hobbit films?
Yeah, Gollum's eyes look awful.
What do you mean by that?
Too blue. He's too blue and too round. He's got weird adoring eyes, and I'm like, he's not supposed to have adoring eyes.
He's 60 years younger, you know?
Gollum?
Yeah.
60 years. Oh, yeah. Well,
it's the Hobbit.
Yeah, but still, no. He looks too... No, I don't like it. Don't like it.
So anyway, that was my rant about we were seeing the 4K version. I wish it was the 1080p version, but we got the 4K version. But the two bits that I didn't notice before, when they're about to go into the Dead Marshes and it cuts to this huge bird's eye view of the expanse of the Dead Marshes, and the Gollum voiceover kicks in, it's like, I found it, I did the way through the marshes, orcs don't know it, orcs don't use it. I never noticed that you can see Frodo, Sam, and Gollum, tiny little bit in the middle of the screen, making their way through the marshland. I thought it was just an overhead shot of the marshland. I've never noticed them walking it before in the middle. And then the other bit I noticed was when Shadowfax shows up, where Gandalf whistles and summons Shadowfax.
In Oblivion, when you get the horse at the end, don't they call that Shadowfax?
I can't remember. I don't
feel
think
like they do. I can't remember, but I feel like there's a horse at the end. They call it Shadowfax. It's cool. It's a black horse. I don't know. Can't remember.
I know in Red Dead Redemption 2, there's like a white horse you can find in the Arctic that's like the fastest horse and is like the best horse and whatnot. But anyway, when Shadowfax is introduced and Gandalf says he is the Lord of all horses, I didn't notice in the background you see Legolas, and I might have noticed Legolas before, but I didn't notice the Gimli sort of like bow their heads in respect to Shadowfax. I was like, oh, that's cool. So even, almost 25 years on, I'm still discovering new things in there. But going back to you mentioned that you enjoyed this one a lot more. What do you think it was about this second time viewing? Was it that added information from the book, or why do you think you gravitated more towards this one today?
I think because the first time, because I really liked the first one, I just kind of thought like, okay, this is the kind of vibe. I think it was a bit of a different vibe. And I think this time, because I knew the vibe, but I knew the story, like I was like, this makes sense and it needs to be here. It's kind of like Star Wars Episode 1. First time I saw it, I was like, okay. Second, like by the next time I saw it, I was like, yeah, okay, but I like this. Like, do you know what I mean? It's that kind of like, it's at first a bit more daunting. Because like Star Wars Episode 1 is very wordy, very dialogue heavy, it's daunting. But then when you've seen it and obviously how important a lot of that stuff is, you're just like, what you see are the good bits again, and you realize like these are the reasons I do like it. So I think the reasons I do like it stood out more, rather than it just being slower, if that makes sense. I think there was I think there's more humor in this than there is in the first one. Yeah, there is more humor.
Well, there's still a lot of jokes in the first one, but I mean, an element of this film that a lot of people point out is the character of Gimli is made more of a comic relief character. I can see that. He definitely gets more.
I don't think it's over the top though.
No, exactly. I was just about to say it all feels completely within character from him. I mean, he even had some funny moments in the first one that feels like they've carried over directly into this.
There's a couple of points in the third one I do think get a little bit carried away.
Yeah.
This one obviously, so it's like he does get progressively more comedic. But I think this one has that nice line, and I think it gives it that, because the thing is, the whole point is Gimli and Legolas are very, like, they hate each other. You know, dwarves and elves hate each other, and it's supposed to show that they become very close and they become friends. And it has that comedy, how they have that bit of a bromance going, kind of like it's fun and it's cool, and it shows that. And I think it shows it really, really well. Like I say, I think Return of the King pushed it over the edge a little bit, but obviously we'll come on to that because it could, my opinion could change a little bit on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, because at first I preferred Return of the King to this, but I don't know. Again, it could change. But yeah, I think it's all handled very, very well. I think it's and even when he's like sitting on the body, and then like you know, and then obviously he's like, yeah, but my axe was in its head. I can't remember the exact line, but you know,
got my axe embedded in his nervous system.
That's it.
I don't think they would know about nervous systems during the time.
But they also
of
say
this,
meat's
but
back on the menu, so you know, like
that's a great fucking line. You know what? Like, I know, I get that line makes no sense at all, and it's really funny to think
uses
that
the shield as a skateboard. So you know, like there's elements.
That's Peter Jackson. That's the Peter Jacksonisms coming in.
There's elements.
What do you think to that skateboard scene?
Do you know what I don't know, because I do think it's a little bit not. I say a little bit. It doesn't really fit sometimes, because it's not as believable in the sense of like you wouldn't slide down that easily. And I think there's Lord of the Rings has more. I know it's fantastical, but you have more believable things that it just felt sometimes a little bit out of place. But I think it's cool.
Just wait till we get to the Hobbit films. That's all I'm going to say.
But the other thing is when obviously he's got the bow and arrow. If he was able to do it in quicker succession, it would look cooler. But he's not, and it's just like he didn't have to be that flashy about it. I don't know. It's fine. I don't mind it. I just do think it's a little bit wacky.
Yeah,
but it's fine.
A lot of this film for me, like when I first saw this film, I would just sort of take us back to when it came out almost 25 years ago. At this point, I talked about Fellowship, how the first time I watched it, I think I was like 8, going on 9, and just my attention span wasn't there, and it was this super long film, and Harry Potter was coming out alongside it, and I definitely gravitated more towards the simplicity of Harry Potter, I would say, when compared to something like Lord of the Rings. It wasn't until Fellowship came out on home video where I almost watched it with like a different pair of eyes. I finally got it, so I guess that little bit of maturing between like the first film coming out and then it being released on video, I was able to understand the story more and the stakes of it and the context of everything. So by that point, the extended edition had come out on DVD as well, so I would have watched that right around the time probably that Two Towers was coming out. And I was hyped. The hype was there. I remember the trailers giving away that Gandalf comes back, though. I think it plays like this cool, like epic 2 Steps from Hell song in the trailer, if I remember rightly. But just like, yeah, Gandalf the White was just front and center on the trailer.
When the episode 9 trailer gave away that Palpatine was back.
Yes.
That was weird. I was like, oh, weird. Okay.
Even if they'd have kept that a surprise, I don't think I would have.
I know, but I was just like, oh, because I remember that reveal as well, and I never really watched, because I don't really watch trailers, and I never saw that. I saw it because someone told me about it, and they were just, I can't remember what they said, but they said it like it was this really cool thing, and I was like, oh. I was like, okay. it was really odd, that one.
And I remember just absolutely adoring Two Towers, and for the longest time, actually, it was my favorite of the 3. And I've been trying to unpack why I think that's the case. And to me, the most interesting stuff of this film and the most exciting and engaging stuff is the Aragorn storyline. It's the epic battles. It's your Helm's Deeps. It's, you know, the bromance with Gimli and Legolas, and Aragorn being awesome. And, you know, you've got the Warg battle in there as well. And I think as I was sort of approaching double digits, like the age of 10 and whatnot, I was sort of clamoring for those cool action fight scenes. You know, the Star Wars prequels were coming out around about this time as well, and Attack of the Clones in 2002 as well. The cool Geonosis stuff, and Anakin Skywalker is sort of that teenage character, and I'm approaching that age, and he's like a role model at that point.
That's a weird role model
at that story, but it's someone you can look up to, like these cool warrior-like characters, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. And the Frodo and Sam stuff, like Gollum's a fun addition, but their actual storyline isn't really the main. It should be the main focus, because Frodo was the main character in the first one, but this one, I'd say it definitely shifts more towards the action stuff and the Aragorn
a role model than Patrick Bateman, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So Yeah, and I think it was really down to like the Helm's Deep stuff. It was the action was so much more bigger and grandiose, and the stakes were raised compared to the first film. That I think that's probably why I enjoyed this one the most for a long time. Since then, I've gone back to Fellowship. Fellowship is easily my favorite. This one, I won't say I dislike more and more as I read the books. I will say I've been
It's a
re-listening
much better
to.
book, though. That's the thing.
Yes, it
It
is.
is,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
to be fair, I can see why. I mean, I've only read the book once, but I can see why if I read Two Towers, that point especially again, how it would dampen the movie because it is just so much better as a book.
Mhm.
But then you've got to think, like, it. Return of the King wouldn't work if we did Two Towers the same as we did it as the book. It wouldn't work. I think you'd get yeah, I mean, I know it would be Frodo and Sam be the second half, so it'd be a bit weird, but like, I think you could get away with that. But I think Return of the King would just be so vastly different that by that point, the movie would just be very weak.
Yeah,
I think you could
yeah.
still make a strong Two Towers movie that is the same as the book. Bit different, like as I say, because of obviously Frodo and Sam, blah blah blah. I think you could still do it really well.
Mhm.
I think Return of the King as a movie would be very weak if you did that structure. There'd be just so much you couldn't have in it.
Mhm.
And that's why it's probably the weakest book, because it's just a lot is kind of not said and done. Like there's still a lot that happens in Return of the King, but there's a lot that Return of the King is kind of like, because it's your final act, it's your tying it up, which is fine, but because of the structure of it, it's just the weaker one. It's not, yeah.
And they have to cut stuff out and they have to trim stuff down. I mean, we'll talk about this more when we get to Return of the King, but they remove characters entirely from Return of the King. They get rid of the Grey Company and Eladan and Elrohir, Elrond's sons, who are with Aragorn during the Paths of the Dead. They get rid of Beregond, for example, who's friends with Pippin at Minas Tirith and is sort of showing him around and everything. Like Dol Amroth and everything, all of that stuff gets removed just because, you know, we're already dealing with a four plus hour movie. You know, we've removed the Scouring of the Shire as well. You can't contain everything from a book like Lord of the Rings, as nice as it would be.
Do you know what though? Because we got more Saruman in this, I think you could have done Scouring the Shire in the Return of the King. I think you could have done that because you've got more Saruman. The issue I had with it in the book was you didn't get as much Saruman, and it just felt very like a, you know,
oh, okay, yeah.
That's one of the things, because I didn't love Scouring the Shire because it was, well, the thing is, Lord of the Rings is such a big book. Once you've done that, you destroyed the ring, and because I say it's intimidating. You look at it, you go, fucking, how much have I got left? But once you've you destroyed the ring, you're like, I've still got all, and you're like, okay. And then it's just a Scouring the Shire, because it's like you've already hit that height. It just felt very like, couldn't we have had a bit more of him? It was a little bit like, I wouldn't change it. I don't think it's, you know, drastically bad. It's just, it wasn't, do you know what I mean? But I think because you got more of Saruman in the movies, I think we could have done Scouring the Shire and had it pay off.
I always think that the destruction of the ring is the end of the plot, but the end of the story is Scouring of the Shire. Like, there is still more story.
The only thing is you're waiting for the destruction of the ring. You're looking forward to that. You've got something that you're rooting for. Like, this is going to happen. No one's rooting for Saruman to end fully. Like, you are a little bit, obviously, because he's there, but it's not the big thing that once that's done, it's like, oh, yeah, that he was there. And also, plus, considering the book, he walks off and you think, oh, he's just kind of retired. Because obviously he was technically good, wasn't he? And they're like, do you know what I mean? He's kind of retired, and it's kind of like, I'm just going to, because there's shame and all that. And that's how I felt like, oh, this is the route it's going down in the book. And then he comes back and you're like, oh, I thought he fucked off. Like, it was just a little bit, yeah. But yeah.
Well, you mentioned that being one of the positives of, well, I guess you could say all three of these films. Because, yeah, Saruman is barely in the book.
More.
I mean, he has a huge importance to the story, but he himself doesn't really crop up all that many times.
I think also because in movies you can have, like, you could literally, in movies, you can have bird's eye views of stuff, and you could have someone sit in their tower smiling, looking at something. You can't really do that in a book as much and just have a little flash of that. You can, but like, your point of view is from other characters, and just having that randomly would just feel a little bit out of place. So I think having Saruman do his things would be like, we're not telling it from his point of view. It would just feel a little bit out. So I think that's why. But I do think the books would have benefited from having more of him, having him be more of an opposing thing, even if, I don't know, Merry and Pippin were ended up like with him at some point a little bit more. Or so. I don't know. I think there's something that he could have done a bit more of in the books, but you know.
And I mean, Christopher Lee is just incredible as well. So any excuse that we get more Christopher Lee is all good as far as I'm concerned.
He doesn't do much anymore, does he?
Oh. But I keep saying this: the casting of all of these films is just incredible. I know some people say, "Oh, I don't really see Elijah Wood, as this character or whatnot." But I think I couldn't think of anyone who could be more perfect for these characters, especially when you're dealing with Ian McKellen as Gandalf and Christopher Lee as Saruman and whatnot. All really good stuff.
Could have had Jim Carrey in it. I wonder how that would work. I think you could have had him. He could have played one of the ring wraiths. That would have been fun. That would have been fun.
I was going to talk about some stuff that I am now all of a sudden not as keen on, and this has just come from re-listening to the book. And I will say I have been re-listening to the Lord of the Rings book. I'm trying to, getting all the three respective parts done before we see the films. I'm sort of like halfway through Return of the King at the moment, so I've got 1 week to get that finished. So that should be done as well. I was watching this film and I'm pretty much with it until we get to Edoras, and then the changes start coming in left, right, and center, and they work for the film. They absolutely do. But I have found more of that appreciation for how the subtleties in the book more so than the film. There's a lot of padding in the second act, and I completely understand why they've done it, because you've got Helm's Deep as your end point. That's going to be your big action scene. We can't intercut that with Shelob's Lair because, number one, that chronologically doesn't happen at the same time, and we're not doing the same structure as the book. So what do we do for Frodo? Well, we've got to add on this Osgiliath side quest with Faramir. In the book, they're taken in by Faramir, and I can't remember the line specifically, but it's something along the lines of when the ring is offered to him, he says, "I wouldn't take the ring even if it was on the wayside or the highway or something." Straight up denies the ring and sends them, and realizes the importance of their quest and sends them on their way. And that's it. Very, very different depiction of Faramir in this film. And ultimately, by the end of the film, he gets to that point where he is in the book, but there's a lot of extra screen time to get there. So he comes across as very villainous. The way that this is a scene I don't like, when they're interrogating Gollum, and it's in the extended version, it's even more lengthy, where they're like throwing him to the ground, they're kicking him, they're picking him up and like punching him in like the kidneys and whatnot. I'm like, oh, it just seems really brutish and villainous. And it is that they do it with Denethor in the next movie as well. It's that we've got to sort of dispense with the subtleties, and we've got to make everything very obvious. And at this point, Faramir needs to be evil, potential villainous character, and then he's going to go on his little character arc, and then by the end of it, he's going to be essentially the character from the book. So I don't really mind all the Osgiliath stuff, but when you've read the book and just know that that's all been made up from whole cloth, it does drag out that second portion of Frodo's story. I think there's some really nice stuff in there. You've got Sam's final speech, which is really touching, and a lot of those lines are taken from Tolkien's text. So I think all of the themes are there and everything, and obviously bringing in Tolkien's language here and there. But yeah, what do you think to Faramir's depiction between the book and the film?
This is the thing. When I read the book, I thought it felt more glossed over, because obviously the order I did it in, I thought like, okay, it's a little bit more. It felt not pointless in the book, but a bit more sort of like, oh, that kind of, it happened and then it went away. It did feel a lot less. So I don't know but this is also, as I said, the way I experienced it. I think, I'm not saying I prefer it in the movie, but I think you see a lot more of it happening, and it just feels a lot more like there's payoffs. Whereas in the book, it was just kind of, it was there and this happened and then they continue, and you're like, cool, That's it. Well, as I say, I wouldn't say I prefer it in the movie, because I still prefer, the structure and everything that happened in the book. I just think, yeah, like you say, there's more to it in the movie, isn't there?
Well, they add in well, this is why I actually think that the extended edition, this particular extended scene for Two Towers, definitely improves the movie and improves the Faramir character that they're going for in the film, is the flashback to the Boromir stuff, and we get that our first depiction of Denethor, and we already get a sense of what his relationship's like with his father, and how his father looks down upon him. He's sort of like the inferior child, and he doesn't see Faramir's true quality, which then gives those lines in the film where he says, "A chance for Faramir, Captain of Gondor, to show his quality," gives it so much more weight and meaning within context of the film. So It's just very different. It's just very, very different from the book, and it's frustrating that the film does so many good things and gets so many things right and makes things incredibly accurate. And then when they change it and make it completely different, I'm like, well, like 80% of the movie, you've gone completely accurate with something. Why change this? There's a few other bits as well that I'm not keen on. Now, when I watch it, I think, why do we need this whole mid movie action scene of the wargs? Well, I know why we need it there. It's because, it's been a while since we've had our last action scene, so now we need to ramp. We need that little blip to get the audience's attention. We need that action beat in the film, because we've got Helm's Deep at the end. What was the one that we had before? Probably had was it like the Urukai stuff, I guess? So we need that little one in the middle there. But then you have the Aragorn death fake out, where they're all really sad and moping around. It's like, oh, Aragorn's. It's like, well, we know he's not. It's really obvious. Like, there was never a moment where I bought that Aragorn was dead.
You need more Shelob.
Shelob's in the next movie.
I know, but I like Shelob. We need more Shelob. And the book ends so well in Two Towers.
It does, yeah. No, that's my favorite bit. That's my favorite bit of the entire book. It's just, and I think that's down to the Phil Dragash audiobook. But when that Gollum song, that end credits music creeps in over that last line from the book, oh, chef's kiss. But yeah, the Aragorn death, and that veers off, and it's a way to get the Arwen love story in there. I really like those two in the film together, though. I don't mind the additional Arwen stuff. I get that the reason they did that was to keep the love story going. It is a bit of a sausage fest of a film, so it's another female character in there. But even though that stuff is created from whole cloth, I don't think it's necessarily bad. That there's bits where they, like the Elrond stuff, where he's talking about, how Aragorn's going to die and whatnot, and you're going to die as well. All that's taken from the appendices, and there's lines directly taken from the appendices as well. So I don't mind all of that stuff, and it keeps Arwen in the picture.
It's a very it's very, what's the word? It's quite depressing when he speaks about it, and he's like, oh yeah, but he's going to die then. I'm like, fucking hell, all right. It's so...
I know, he must be fun at parties, right?
Yeah, yeah, because it is basically just a protective father kind of like, at some point, him being mortal, he is going to die. It's basically like saying, don't get a dog, it'll die one day. It's like, all right, calm down.
And there's even, if you've read the Silmarillion, which you're working on, there's even more context to that, because I'm not going to go down like a massive lore rabbit hole, but Elrond's brother, they were both given a choice as to whether they wanted to be mortal or immortal, whether they wanted to live as a man or live as an elf. And Elrond chose to live as an elf, and his brother chose to be immortal. So he's lost a brother to that decision before as well. Sense. So there's even more of that. Yeah.
I would choose to be an elf. You get cool ears, and the elf girls are hot. So I would choose to be an elf.
Speaking of the elves, this is one thing. So for years, this is cool, and it is cool. The spectacles there's some really awesome shit in the Battle of Helm's Deep. I have since really disliked the idea of the elves showing up at Helm's Deep. I like it being this last-ditch effort with, completely horrifically outnumbered. What is it? They say in the movie 300 to 10,000 or something like that. It's like 300 Spartans, isn't it? But I really like that they've just got to sort of batten down the hatches and just make it through the night until, Gandalf's going to show up with reinforcements. And then the elves show up, and it plays the cool elven music when they rock up, and Haldir's there looking badass. I really like Haldir's character.
He's got a big forehead as well, hasn't he?
So that guy who plays him, Craig Parker, is incredible. Like, he's a really chill guy. He's awesome. But like, you look at him now, and you feel like you get catfished. He looks nothing like... I know he's not going to have like the long blonde hair, but just his face, just everything. It looks like... Are you sure you played that character? It's like, I'm not getting catfished right now. He's super chill, though. He's a really, really nice guy. But yeah, I just don't like this now, because number one, it doesn't make any geographical sense that the elves from... So is it Rivendell and Lothlorien? I bring word of Elrond. I think it's Lothlorien, isn't it? That they come from. Yeah, because that's where Haldir was in the first movie. Very far. Yeah. It's incredibly far to travel on foot as well.
For a whole army.
Madness. Absolute madness. Now, I was trying... Because the original concept was that Arwen was there among the ranks, and there's still a few choice little shots in the film where if you know where to look, or if you pause the frame, blink and you'll miss it. if like she's there, you can still see Arwen. Like they've mostly got rid of her, but there's some shots where she hasn't been digitally removed or whatever, and you can still see the remnants of those old scenes. They wanted to keep Arwen more present in the film. I guess, sort of an extension of how she was depicted in Fellowship of the Ring. Of course, they changed Glorfindel's character in Fellowship of the Ring to Arwen, and her depiction in that film, that first part of the film, is like your warrior princess, warrior woman, capable in battle and can summon magic and whatnot.
She could always kill herself. Like when it's the whole like Aragorn dies, she could always just kill herself when it happens, and they could die together. She could do a Romeo and Juliet thing. She's like, well, you're going to die anyway.
I mean, they do kind of die around the same time anyway in the book, but
But so what I'm saying is, he's like, oh yeah, but you're immortal. So she could just kill herself.
The thing is, like everything Elrond predicts in that very, like downer speech that he gives her, all of that is technically what happens. All of that does come true.
Yeah.
What I was going to say.
To be fair, this is more Return of the King, but the Sauron boss battle that's supposed to happen in the movies that didn't happen.
Yeah.
How are they going to play out how Sauron was able to have a physical form? What was their? I was going to say, what would their reason?
Probably the reason they cut it.
Yeah, because they were like, I don't really have a reason for that. I kind of like to see it, like just see the shots that they did with Sauron instead, just to see what kind of like did they go for the original design? Like, I just wanted to see it. I'd like to see, because it doesn't make sense, does it?
I guess because were they going to try and square it that the ring was closer to its master, and that
Yeah, but no, that would just not work.
Well, exactly. Like that's probably the reason they cut it. It's a terrible idea.
Fucking awful. I would like to just see the shots that they did, just to see like, all right, I want to see what you went for. But yeah, it's just
So you remember they've pasted over him with like a troll that he fights. Again, it's like one of those blink and you'll miss it moments where you can still see the sword, like Sauron's sword, just peeking behind the troll.
Can you?
In one shot? Yeah. It's again like you'd have to go frame by frame, but it's there if you know where to look for it. But yeah, the Arwen stuff. So she was going to feature more heavily in the battle. The bit where Aragorn and Gimli get pulled up by Legolas, that was originally going to be Arwen. I don't know if I can't see Arwen just like bodily lifting both Aragorn and Gimli. I don't know if she was going to help out with Legolas pulling them up the wall. But it was to keep that love story going. And could you imagine that, though? Like the Battle of Helm's Deep, and you've got this, oh, no, Aragorn, I must protect you. No, my dear lady, I must protect you. And that would just completely sidetrack what the real stakes and the real core of this battle is meant to infer and get across. But I do wonder if the choice to have the elves be present at Helm's Deep came after the decision of saying, well, we need to integrate Arwen into this movie. How are we going to do it? We need to make her be more of a focal point in the film. Well, I guess we could put her at Helm's Deep. Let's try and get her at Helm's Deep. How are we going to do that? Well, maybe she goes to Lothlorien, because this was a deleted scene as well that was going to be in the film. Arwen goes to Lothlorien to speak to her grandmother, Galadriel, and that's probably where Arwen convinces Galadriel to send the force of elves to Helm's Deep. And I don't know whether it was going to be a fact of she was hiding amongst the ranks, like a Mulan kind of situation, or I guess like eventually like Eowyn.
Yeah, I was going to say that is exactly what they do there.
Yeah, I didn't know if they were going to do something like that, but then Arwen's dressed in sort of like bright red robes, so maybe she isn't hiding amongst the ranks, and maybe she's just like a captain of them or something. So I'm wondering if the whole reason that the elves were at Helm's Deep was because they were like, right, we need to get Arwen in there. Then when they had it all shot, then they were like, maybe this isn't a great idea. We should probably not have the whole Arwen thing. And they cut all the Arwen scenes. But then they were like, well, shit, we filmed this whole battle with elves. We've got to keep the elves in it now. So the elves need to show up. So yeah, I don't know if that's sort of the remnants, because it's really weird. At the end of the Helm's Deep battle, the elves are just gone. There's no sort of like final thank you or seeing the elves march away. I don't know if we're meant to infer that they all got murdered at the wall, because that final charge of Theoden and his men, like when he says like 4 Thairlingers, it's only really like a handful of them left, isn't it, I suppose? So I don't know if it's like all the elves have been killed. It's weird that they just disappear. So that scene, the spectacle's great, where they're doing like all the volleys of arrows and whatnot. It's awesome stuff. It is still, in my opinion, the best on-screen battle, the best on-screen siege battle we've ever had cinematically, and probably we will ever have. But as a fan of the book now, I'm not a book purist, but there are some things I'm like, oh, well, why did you make that change? Just keep it as the Rohirrim. The one change that I do really like though in this whole scene is removing the character of Erkenbrand and replacing that character with Éomer. So in the book, Gandalf rides off to get the aid of the Rohirrim and bring them back to Helm's Deep. And he brings Erkenbrand, and everyone's like, Erkenbrand, yeah, he's this really cool dude who's done lots of cool stuff. And you read it in the book and you're like, okay, I guess he's important. And similar to Glorfindel, he never shows up again.
There's a lot of that though in the book. There is a lot of, I think, characters and stuff, which it's one of the things that I think I wouldn't say works in the book. It does work, but it's one of the things that I think is cool that you see, because I'm again a firm believer of what I've said many times. Is like, not everything needs a meaning, not everything needs a reason. Like, you can just have characters that is literally their only purpose. And for a movie, I can see why they change it, because it's just like, oh, because then after that we don't see them again, and people are thinking, well, what was the point in that character? But it's like, this is how stuff feels realistic to me. Like, because obviously, for instance, people like, for instance, they refer to it as Earth. They always do it, regardless, even if it's like, because I can't remember I used this comparison before, but like in Dragon Ball, it's set on Earth. That Earth is nothing like our Earth. Like, the fucking king's a dog. Like, do you know what I mean? It's nothing like anything. But the reason they call it that is just to make it immersive and make you feel like, oh, it's Earth, it's home. Like, and that's the reason they do it. And the point is, you have these things to make it feel realistic, even if it is just a mention of calling it that. To me, it feels realistic when you do have characters or little things like that you're like, yeah, but it doesn't do anything afterwards. It feels realistic because it's like, in life, shit does happen that you're like, that doesn't have some big payoff. Not every little thing needs to, like, even because I've compared it to, you might watch a TV show, and I mean, just a casual TV show like Friends or something. I've never, off the top of my head anyway, when someone will, like, say they start an episode and someone just put the phone down, they're just saying, oh, hey, bye to someone or whatever. And that has no relevance. It's usually, I say that and I go, oh, who was that? Oh, it's this person. They're coming out, and then it becomes a big thing. It's like, they can just say good, but like, it hasn't taken up much screen time. It's literally them saying, oh yeah, thanks for calling, goodbye. That's it. They put the phone down. That hasn't added any extra time. That hasn't done anything. Hasn't cost you anymore. It just makes it a real life situation. And I think just little things like this, having characters like that, make these things like that can happen. You mean, how many elves are there? There's a lot. Do you know what I mean? Having an elf that does that and appears and you never see them again, it's like, that is believable. Do you know what I mean? So I see why the change happened in the movie. I just think this is one thing I do like about the book, basically, is it has quite a few moments where it's like, yeah, that didn't need some big payoff, and cool. It's, again, kind of like Scarrow and the Shire, when it messes with the formula. It was, just a bit of a hat on a hat, wasn't it? But yeah.
I do really like that change, and just absolutely, for the necessity of film, you've got to cut the character bloat down and just keep it focused. And I think you've got the perfect setup for it. You have Éomer, who's banished at the beginning of the film, and he's got 2,000 horsemen with him, and they're the ones that come back at the end. Like, could you imagine this film where just at the end, a random guy who you've never seen before called Erkenbrand is at Gandalf's right and says Rohirrim to the king, and you'd be like, wait, who's that? Whereas if it's Éomer and he comes back, like that moment where Gandalf shows up and you've got that little silhouette of him where he rears up on the horse, and Éomer just rocks up and says, Rohirrim to the king, and they all charge that. That's one of my favorite bits in the movie. Looks outstanding. The fucking soundtrack kicks in. Oh, man, so good. It's one of my favorite scenes of the entire film, and it's brilliant. And that is an example of a change between the film and the book that I definitely prefer. On the subject of that, what I think is really, just testament to the screenwriting of this film and Peter Jackson's direction, is that they have to introduce a whole stack of new characters. We've got a new location of Rohan, and then within that, we've got to establish the like political situation of what's going on. We've got to very, very quickly introduce King Theoden, Grima Wormtongue, Éowyn, and Éomer, what their stake in the story is, the state of their province, and how they're going to play into the story, and Theodred as well, all of that. And they pretty much get that across all within one scene, where they find the body of Theodred, they ride back, and you get all of this information about the character. That must be really tricky to do. You're onto your second film, and all of a sudden you've got to introduce very, very quickly this whole batch of new characters that are going to be central to this new film. And I think they do it really well. There's a lot of stuff that isn't in the book, like, for example, the whole Theodred stuff. Theodred died right around the same time that Boromir died in the timeline. and his body's never recovered. Like his body is they like do a makeshift burial mound, I think, at the site where he was killed. So that bit where you see his body, like the fords of the Eisen, where we see it in this film, like that's already happened. There's no body to bring home. There's no like really moving moment where Bernard Hill buries his son, which is a so poignant moment in the film.
In real life, his son buried him not too long ago.
Oh,
that was a thing.
That's
Hill's
too
son.
soon. That's too soon.
It's only 2 years. 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, that's some of the best stuff in the movie. Like the bit where Eowyn does that song of mourning, and it's all in like Old English, like Anglo-Saxon, whatever.
Which
it
is
is
the song that's in Elvish though in the book? Is it
Galadriel?
So there's a thing.
Yeah, Galadriel sings one. Yeah, Galadriel sings one. But yeah, the bit where Eowyn starts singing, just got like, why is JX calling me? JX, I'm on a live stream. Stop calling me right now. But yeah, just literal goosebumps, chills when that song kicked in. All of that's really good, like the burial mound stuff. And again, none of that's in the book, but it's nice to have that in the movie. It's just that there's extra little changes, but stuff that I appreciate in the film and stuff that I appreciate in the book. JX is calling me again. Motherfucker, stop calling me. I bet he's watching the stream. He's doing it to wind me up now. What were some of your favorite aspects of this film then, now seeing it on the big screen? Any moments? What, sorry?
Eowyn was bigger.
You like Eowyn, don't you?
She was more
Eowyn's your girl.
I saw more of her. I'm trying to think what my favorite thing, because the thing is, I do. I think the whole Theoden thing was very, very quick. You see him poisoned and then he's not in the movie. It felt very, it just kind of happened.
Oh, that's one thing I dislike, in that it's an actual possession by Saruman.
Yeah.
Like it's more subtle in the book. It's just that he's
more
depressed.
Of a poison. Yeah, it's more of a poisoning spell kind of. Do you know what I mean? That whole like, do you know? It's a different thing.
It's not even a spell. It's just that he's just become like Grima Wormtongue feeding lies into his mind. It's sort of like corrupted his mind a little bit.
I saw it in that as there was like a bit of a spell, like a kind of a charm kind of put on him. That's what I saw it as in the book. There was like a bit of a, do you know what I mean? Resist, but like I say, it's like a possession. It's right. He comes in, he goes boom, and he's gone. It was a bit in the movie quick, you know.
As I say, and I'm sure in the book it's not a spell. It's just the fact that Grima Wormtongue's been sort of like in his ear the whole time and made him very passive and neglectful of his kingdom. He's just become depressed. Really, he's sort of like given into despair, similar to Denethor. But Denethor goes fully into that despair, whereas Gandalf comes in and sort of brings the light and lifts Theoden out of it. Whereas in the movie, it's like, oh no, Saruman is actually possessing him. Like like The Exorcist. It's basically what it is, isn't it? Like he comes in and he's like, the power of Christ compels you, and sends him away. But I mentioned this in a video that I did with Bath Time. We were saying, does Saruman have to be like concentrating on this spell? Does he have to be wired in all times? Because he's off doing some other shit, isn't he? Like, so I don't like that.
It is a bit
it's making more things obvious again, like we were mentioning, right? Very overt.
Why does because when he comes and like he does the whole spell thing he did with his staff, it's like, well, when does it, because then he says like, oh, you have no power here. It becomes very like you say, does he have to be focusing to do that? Did he battle? Did he have to fight back? Did he? I don't know. Yeah, it's more of,
because when he casts him back, you see Saruman just like fly back and like smack against the floor, don't you? But it's like he's chatting to the orcs. He's like overseeing everything, making sure all preparations are done at Orthanc. So he can't be wired in all the time. Yeah, it's just
he's overseeing the budget for the orcs, and he's like, it's a big army. And he's there at the top of his tower approving like time off and all that, like all the holidays from.
I like that one orc in the extended edition where he's basically
shitbag.
No, shitbag. He's unionizing the orcs basically. He's like, we don't have the manpower, we don't have the means, we don't have the budget, my lord. He's like, but like as you say, work the furnaces. He's like, we don't have enough fuel to feed the fires.
It's literally because he's the general manager. And like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's there just being just like, we need more men. This one's booked holiday. I can't do it.
In other deviations from the book, this is probably like there's loads in the film, but this is another one I wanted to mention because I thought I heard you perk up a little bit in the cinema. I could be just like you noticed something. The extended edition where Merry and Pippin are drinking the Ent draft.
Yeah, it was before. It was with the with the trees and it holding them.
Yeah,
because I was like, oh, fucking Tom Bombadil,
old,
Forest,
Old Man Willow.
Yeah, because I was like, that was a thing in the which I noticed.
So they move Old Man Willow to the extended edition of Two Towers for some reason, and Treebeard has a couple of lines as well that Tom Bombadil says.
Yeah,
like
because I noticed that this time round. I went, that's a thing. So
like when he lays them down to sleep, he's like, "Sleep, little shylings, heed no nightly noise." That's something Bombadil says.
Yeah.
And when he commands the tree to release them, he's like, "Away with you! You should not be waking. Dig, what is it? Eat earth, dig deep, drink water, or something like that. Go to sleep." All that's Tom Bombadil. So I don't know how I feel about that. There's the side of me where it's like,
I think it just gets it in there though, doesn't it? Which is cool.
That's what I mean, but it gets it in there in the completely wrong place and context. So then I'm like, oh well, why bother doing it at all? If you're going to skim over it, just why has Old Man Willow been uprooted from the old forest and now exists in Fangorn? It's
Tom Bombadil not there at all.
It's tipping the cap to it, definitely, but it's now I'm just like, well, this is wrong.
Well, it's just not Rings of Power and putting Tom Bombadil in fucking in the desert or some shit.
Don't speak its name. Don't speak its name.
Yeah.
The scene that always got me was the intro scene. I remember seeing that for the first time on the big screen and being blown away. I love the Balrog, as I mentioned before. It's my favorite movie monster. And that bit where Gandalf's falling down with it was probably, for a long, long time, probably until Return of the King came out, the coolest thing that I'd ever seen on screen. I was just absolutely mesmerized by it. And I wanted more of that fight. And there was meant to be more of that fight, but the technology, the limitations at the time, they couldn't do it. So in the book, it mentions when they fall and land in that water, land in that pool at the bottom of the chasm, the flames in the Balrog were extinguished and he became a creature of mud and slime, I think it says. Basically like a goopy clay face, I imagine. And they wanted to film that part. And there's concept art for it. And it looks really cool, but they just didn't have the tech at the time to do it. I did want to talk about the tech, though, and almost 25 years on, looks absolutely outstanding. The stuff they did on Gollum in this film is absolutely incredible. It's just masterfully done, and still looks really, really good. There are certain scenes that look a lot better than others. I was noticing that with Gollum, but like his main scene, the bit where he's got like the split personality scene, looks absolutely amazing. And you do genuinely forget that you're looking at a digital character and you're just seeing a character. How well do you think Gollum's held up with technology wise and performance wise?
Better than he held up from fucking Fellowship. I think the Fellowship one just
they didn't have a design then, did they?
So I do think, and he looks better than he does. The Hobbit looks too brushed up and it just looks weird. And I just like, because this looks scraggly and like he's supposed to. In fucking The Hobbit, he just looks stupid. He looks like a fucking doll, and he's not supposed to look like a doll. He's supposed to look creepy and horrible. And in this, he looks good.
Well, they still do like the big Disney eyes thing because
they do, but they're not bright and blue. They're not bright and like, because in The Hobbit they're bright. They're fucking like, do you know what I mean? Like someone's polished them, like the scene in Toy Story 2 with the polish. They're like that. They're not like that's the thing. So at least in this, I think he looks fine. Yeah,
great performance from Andy Serkis as well. It's funny watching the behind the scenes because they didn't do motion capture. Nowadays, they get people in the suits with the cameras and it actually translates their movements directly into the film, into the effects. They didn't have that at this point, so it was performance capture. So Andy Serkis was stood there in this weird sort of, kind of like the thing that you had on your face actually at the beginning, like this balaclava thing and, this scuba suit basically. And he was acting everything out, but they would then have to paste over him or use that as a reference to then add in Gollum after the fact. By the time you get to The Hobbit, it's just straight up motion capture. And it's fun to see how much that technology developed. I always keep thinking that Gollum was the first one to do it, and it really wasn't. It was Jar Jar Binks was the first one to do it. I would say that, and
Jar
to
Jar
be fair,
Binks-
the effects work looks really good on Jar Jar
Well,
Binks.
Jar Jar Binks is a black man.
Yeah,
and he had the thing on it, like he had the head, because then he's like, because you see the behind the scenes of
it's to get the eye line, isn't it?
Yeah,
so you know where to look. Yeah, they did that in Infinity War as well with Thanos. You had Josh Brolin with like this big cardboard cutout of Thanos' head on top of him, which must be really, really weird to act against. But you know, this is why these actors are the best in the business, aren't they?
Have you seen how they act against in Sonic? Their little tennis balls they use for Sonic and Knuckles and all that. They use tennis balls. It's quite funny to see them act with little balls.
Well, they mentioned that they tried filming the shots without Andy Serkis there, but unsurprisingly, the performances, the shots that always got the better performance out of them was when Andy Serkis was there in person acting alongside them. So I think that's always the right call, and it's just great to see how well Andy Serkis's career's progressed over the years, and just really how much the technology has as well. The early to sort of mid 2000s was really where effects were coming into their own. You were getting a lot of these big budget blockbuster films. You had the Star Wars prequel trilogy, Lord of the Rings, the Pirates of the Caribbean films, Harry Potter, that were all pushing effects, and you could just see them progress during that mid part of the 2000s.
We haven't had a movie series like any of those in a long time, have we? Really? Like,
not really. I guess financially, you could say Avatar, but
we've not had, because the thing is, like you say, by that point, like it was that early 2000s, mid 2000s, where you had loads of shit going on at once.
Mm-hmm. Spider-Man trilogy.
Yeah, we don't really get that at the moment. We've got loads of really cool other things. It's just sort of Marvel Cinematic Universe did a thing for a while, but like we haven't. Do you know what I mean? We haven't had loads of stuff at once.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think even that Marvel's sort of on its way out.
Well, yeah, Marvel's on its way out after Iron Man. Fucking shit universe.
Let's see what else. I mean, the music. Jesus Christ, Howard Shore, absolute genius. But my favorite piece of music, the Rohan theme. That piece of music, well, the whole soundtrack really, but that specific piece of music was the catalyst really for me deciding to pick up violin at high school, because I really wanted to play the Rohan theme. And obviously since then I've gone on to do music and other stuff there. So I always bring it back to this. It wasn't just this soundtrack. Sort of before that, I got into the Phantom Menace soundtrack. I loved Duel of the Fates and got into John Williams. And as we mentioned, the Harry Potter films were coming out at the same time. And I was listening to
Palpatine.
He's very old, is that man, but we love him. We love him. But yeah, Howard Shore's score to all three of these films is just an absolute masterpiece. The dude basically made 3 operas, as far as I'm concerned, for these, and tells the story through the music. And also just the location shooting. This is something you could say for all 3 Lord of the Rings films. The third one definitely gets a lot more effects heavy, which is probably by necessity with how big the action set pieces get, the battles and whatnot. But the bit where you've got the 3 hunters running across the plains, plains of New Zealand, I guess, but it's Rohan. You know, when I watch it, it's Rohan, and it's absolutely mesmerizing. Every single scenic panoramic shot in this from a helicopter looks incredible, from the first opening scene of the Misty Mountains, the snow-covered mountains, to the plains of Rohan, as I've mentioned. Yeah, we don't see as many locations in this one. We talked about that last week, how Fellowship, it's this great introduction to the world, and you get so many different locations because it's almost like a road movie. We're going from new location to new location. This one mostly centers on, what would you say, 3 sort of like main locations, maybe 3 or 4.
It feels very Anglo-Saxon-y kind of.
I mean, I love that so much. But seeing Edoras on top of that hill, it just looks incredible.
Whereas the first one feels very Somerset, very fucking, do you know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. And then obviously they go into, like, you got the snowy mountains. But the thing is, it does really well at feeling like they're really far away from home, because it's so different.
Yeah.
And this is it's more of it's closer proximity. Like, you've got the first one, they go off on the big. This one, it's more within that. But also because with Frodo and Sam, it shows how they're in a completely separate part of the world. So I think that the design is done very well. It's not just the whole, right, this is the same sort of thing. Because one of the things as well is with it being obviously, you know, on the same continent, and not like, I mean, they're not millions of miles away from each other, but they are far. it does well at showcasing a lot of things around that area rather than like just going, oh, they're in here and it's the same as this. It's all quite different, which does really, really well.
I remember, as I say, I was probably about 9 years old, maybe 10 when this came out. I think I was going on 10. I remember being really scared by the orcs. Not like scared where I'm like hiding behind the chair or something like that, but I just remember this innate like fear that I had and dread of seeing these orcs. And the bit where Grishnak's pursuing Merry and Pippin into Fangorn Forest and he's like really creepy. That one is like, why can't we have some meat? Just the makeup work is outstanding across all three of these films. And again, we haven't got to the Hobbit films yet, but when they make the shift to digital, it just doesn't have the same effect. You know, it doesn't. They don't feel as real or tangible or gross and nasty. They look very kind of like what you were saying with Gollum, very HD, very plasticky. So you know what I mean.
Put Billy Connolly in it,
and they make him CGI as well.
Isn't he dying?
What?
Billy Connolly, isn't he dying?
Oh, he's not well. Yeah, I mean, he's got Parkinson's quite severely now, hasn't he? I think he's been battling cancer.
But for some reason, they put him in. Who is he in the movie?
Dane Ironfoot.
Is he a dwarf?
He is a dwarf.
Yeah,
yes,
that's what I mean, because he looks very, but he's more.
He did when they put him in makeup, and then all of a sudden they make him CGI.
That's
like
I remember it. But yeah, I remember seeing a little bit behind the scenes that you showed me. It's very It's
and they stick him on a CGI pig. It was meant to be a wild boar in concept art. I don't know what went wrong. Oh, I remember. I think Peter Jackson. I don't know if Peter Jackson's got a pet pig or had a pet pig. Or something. He became really enamored with this fucking pig, and he was just all, oh, let's make Dane Ironfoot ride that pig that I like. I'm like, okay. Anyway, that's a review for The Hobbit. You haven't watched those films yet. We will get to the. Let's get Lord of the Rings done. Have a bit of a break. Have a bit of a breather. We've got a lot of Pixar films to get through over the next few weeks. So yeah, we'll sprinkle the Hobbit.
We can
films
do The Hobbit
in.
when it's 25 years old.
Yeah. Okay.
When did that come out? How old was it? How old?
I'm trying to think now. 25. That would be 2037. It came out 2012.
So 2037, yeah.
I think. Was it 2011? Let me check actually.
It's 2037. What year are we in? 2026. So 11 years.
Yeah, 2012 it came out. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it'd be 2037, wouldn't it? 25th anniversary.
I can wait till I'm 42 to watch it.
And the ending. Now, this time, because I was fully invested in Lord of the Rings by this point, I'd had my, I turned around on Fellowship, Two Towers, I was in it day one, loving it, and then the ending hit. And I hadn't read the book at this point. I didn't read the book for many, many long years, actually, after. But the ending where Gollum says, we could let her do it, she could do it. It's this very, what would you say? Sort of like the dramatic irony of it, where he's just laid out his plan of how he's going to kill the hobbits, and then he's just like, "Oh, come on, guys, long way to go. Yeah, I'll show you the way." And he just follow me. The camera pans up to Mordor. Fucking phenomenal ending shot.
Yeah, but it's got the Eye of Sauron. I fucking hate that tower.
Yeah, you don't like that it's an actual eyeball.
I think it's shit.
Yeah,
and the thing is, the issue definitely becomes in the next movie, right? Yeah. Fucking has a lot of issues.
Like it's a spotlight, yeah.
And I really don't like that, because Sauron is supposed to be very, well, what is he? Is he like he's obviously lost a lot of power, but what is he? What kind of form has he taken on? That sort of thing. And it's supposed, but this is just, there's an eye. Why is there a fucking giant flaming eye? It's like, it just doesn't make sense, because I like the whole, it's supposed to be, the eye is always watching. It's like, like a metaphor rather than an actual thing, and I prefer that in the book.
Yeah.
In the movies, it's just a bit like, I feel like Tolkien watched this would go, yeah, I didn't mean an actual fucking eye. Like, do you know what I mean? It'd be one of those things. It's just like, I did not like it. I do not like the eye. I
think it's important to have some kind of visual signifier for Sauron, and for better or worse, that giant flaming eyeball is iconic. It is an iconic look for a movie
Jim
villain.
Savile. He's an iconic person, but like,
wow. But yeah, the ending of this film, when it hit that cliffhanger, and knowing that I'd have to wait a year to see what was going to happen. Now, I didn't have to wait a year. I could have read the book, but with how big the book is and how slow a reader I was back then, and I am now, it probably would have taken me well more than a year to get to that point in the book. But there was one saving grace that I thought at the time that came in the form of the 1978 animated Lord of the Rings. So I think because of the popularity of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings films, I think they re-released it on video, or it was much more widely available at like Woolworths or wherever you went to buy your videos. And I was like, oh, Lord of the Rings, okay, this is an animated one. Sure, okay. Popped it in. I was like, oh, this is very, very different to the Peter Jackson one. Since then, I actually appreciate a lot about that film, but it was going through. It went through Fellowship. I was like, okay, and then it got onto Two Towers. I was like, holy shit! Okay, we're going through Two Towers. It got to the Battle of Helm's Deep, and I thought, oh my god, I'm gonna find out what happens. I'm gonna have spoilers essentially, inside information before I see Return of the King at the end of the year. And that animated film ends at exactly the same point that Peter Jackson's film does. It's just right at the end of Battle of Helm's Deep. Victory is, the good guys win, and then it ends.
Is it still Frog Golem in the animated one?
That's the
I know it's in Return of the King.
That's the Rankin and Bass one. So he's Frog Golem in the animated Hobbit and animated Return of the King.
In the animated Two Towers, he doesn't look like that.
No. No, that was Ralph Bakshi who did that. So it's kind of like this weird spiritual successor. You've got Rankin and Bass that sort of bookend it with the Hobbit and Return of the King, and then you've got
Frog Golem that's green.
Frog
Golem, which I didn't understand. I saw that clip and I was like, but he's green. Why is he green? He's supposed to be black. It's really.
I like all of the they are actually quite accurate to the book in some respects. Other aspects not so much, but yeah, they in some respects
because the Hobbit one has the same vibe.
That's my favorite film version of The Hobbit. I think it's the only one out of all the ones that have been made that captures the spirit of the book almost perfectly.
Remember the game, the PS2 one?
That was really good. That was faithful as well, actually. That was a really good adaptation. So yeah, I never got my answer to what happened after Two Towers until Return of the King came out, and it was that agonizing wait. And I don't want to harp on the Hobbit films too much, but it was a very, very different feeling and different emotion waiting for those films. So there was the excitement for Desolation of Smaug, but then when that ended, the cliffhanger to that just felt, well, it is very cheap. It was done as a marketing strategy to get asses in seats. But like the reason that we were there, we wanted to see the Desolation of Smaug. It was like, you're going to see that in the next movie. So by the time Battle of the Five Armies rolled around, there wasn't really this mad excitement. It was almost like, oh, well, let's just get this over with. It was like a sense of obligation to just, we need to finish the story.
Based around 2 pages of the
book. yeah, pretty much. Very few, very, very short pages of a battle scene, which is one chapter of the book.
And even then, the battle scene's told in hindsight. Like he falls, he's knocked out. So it's such a, I don't know, but.
It is, I mean, there are good things. And as I say, I don't want to make this a Hobbit review. There are good things in the Hobbit trilogy. There absolutely are. And the circumstances that those films were made were completely different as well.
I do like the beginning of I've watched the beginning of the first one with...
Oh, okay.
Like the very, very beginning, up until the dwarves enter. Because when the dwarves enter and Thorin looks like he does, I was like, yeah, I'm good, and I just kind of stopped.
You turned it up? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like, what?
I didn't realize you watched it.
I watched part of it because I wanted to see, because when I read the book, it was because there was so many characters. It was a struggle for me to keep with. Like, I was just kind of like, it took me a while to get through that bit because it was just very sort of like, it was just, I don't know, it was just, as I say, a lot of characters, a lot of this, and then I was trying to keep track of it, and it just, anyway, so I thought, I watched the movie, and I wanted to, that was the bit I was excited for, seeing that beginning. I wanted to see how they were, but I like when obviously Gandalf meets Bilbo. I really liked that in the movie. I think that was done really, really well. Whatever his name,
Martin Freeman.
That's him, yeah, that guy. I like the way he portrays him. I like the way, because obviously the lines that are taken directly from the book. I think the beginning's done very, very, very well. Even when the dwarves show up and stuff, and like he's very confused, and I think them coming in is great, and them singing like they do it. I think all that's great. It's just like, why the fuck have we made Thingy a human? Where's a dwarf? He's not a fucking dwarf though. You've established what dwarves look like. This is not a dwarf, but hey ho.
That could have been the studio. Yeah, we'll get onto that when we get onto the Hobbit.
There was a lot wrong with it.
That's going to be a whole series of live streams in and of itself, and we will get to them eventually when the time's right. But as I say, we've got a lot of films to get through. Did I ask you what your favorite scene was from this movie? Let's do favorite and least favorite. Let's favorite and least favorite.
Do you know what? I don't know if I'd say least favorite, but it's not least favorite. But when I said about the possession thing, I just think it was a bit. I don't know. It did just feel we need to get that in there. It wasn't. Yeah, but I don't know if that's just because I've read the books now, which I found that because I don't remember. I don't dislike it, but it stood out to me more this time with being very like. My favorite though, I don't know how it's not that impactful, but I always remember it is when Eowyn makes the stew and then she like gives it to him and then he spit. Like I just find that funny. I like that, and that's quite a comedic, and it goes with it because when she talks to Aragorn as well, and he's like, I'm 87, and she's like, oh,
she's into older guys.
Yeah, and it's very sort of. I just like that. I like the chemistry there. I like how it's like obviously humorous, but it also it delves into the lore a little bit. Like, what is he? What is he? A fucking figure?
Oh, it's Dunedain, isn't
That's
he?
it, Dunedain. Because they talk about that. I really like that, and I like the whole because it's a very refugee camp kind of thing by that point, isn't it? With the whole she's feeding them, they're trying to like survive now because they're like, well, we don't know what we're going to do. I like that whole sort of aspect, but my favorite set piece is the actually Rohan itself with the straw like roofs and all that. Like, that's my favorite. Just over like I wouldn't say scene, but fucking panorama, whatever. Do you know what I mean? That's my favorite like aerial shot thing. Yeah.
I was going to say, so that moment you mentioned there with Eowyn with the stew and whatnot, of that is an extended scene.
Is it? That's
so
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Without that, when you watch the theatrical versions, and they say if you're completely new to it, you haven't read the book, you know nothing about the Lord of the Rings. Watching that scene and going, "Oh, he's 88 years old," like you wouldn't get that information. You'd think he's just sort of like a regular, aged character, wouldn't you? Which is quite funny. So it's just that one scene that gives you the context.
I do like that. To be fair. That's that one I would stick as my favorite.
My least favorite scene in the Two Towers. There's one moment I'm not keen on, and I think to me it just kills what was a really, really good emotional setup. The bit where you see the wild men and the Uruk-hai burning their way through the Westfold, and it's quite genius how they do it in that it focuses on one family during the evacuation as like they're all coming in and they're about to burn the village. And this mom, almost like Moses, sends her children away. And, she's like, oh, I will find you there. And we know at this point that she's not. She's putting on a brave face to try and get her children to safety. And it's beautiful. And then that's ruined when they get to Helm's Deep and she actually survived and she reunites with the kids and everyone's happy. I'm like, oh,
when they're putting the armor on the kids.
That's a great scene. I do love the build up to Helm's Deep. And you see scenes like that. And again, you go to the Hobbit and you're like, how did the same director do that? Anyway, but so that's one of them, but that's just, it doesn't break the film for me. It just kind of irritates me because I thought it was a really good setup before that point.
I know my least favorite from the next one.
I think it's kind of weird that this is all like the Osgiliath stuff that's added to the movie. Frodo holds up the ring to looking at the sword. Okay, it's not the Witch King, it's a regular ring wraith. He holds up the ring almost in point blank reaching distance of a ring wraith. Why wouldn't the ring wraith send like reinforcements back to claim the ring? Like the ring is there, they have confirmation, they know who it is, they can put a face to him now, and he just fucks off. I guess in the next movie they do come back during the attack on Osgiliath, but it's not in direct search of the ring, and it's like the ring is right there, you have confirmation, get them over here now. So that's just weird. That's just like a weird thing, confrontation with the Witch King, not the Witch King, sorry, the ring wraith. I don't know why that's in there.
Why didn't Frodo ever swallow the ring? And like just like that, and then there's no fear of losing it. It's always inside him.
There's the Pulp Fiction quote. I'm just dying to say there, the Christopher Walken thing. hiding that hunk of metal up his ass for 3 years.
Why do they do that? Why does he do that? And then they just they do it like that, and then they don't know where it is. And where's the ring? I don't know.
You're gonna have to wait a while.
Yeah,
you have to go wait a few hours.
And then the end scene in Mount Doom could literally just be him over the edge with his arse over the edge, and then that's how it drops in.
The crack of doom.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
That could have been that could have been the title and everything. The crack of doom.
And on that bombshell, I think we'll round off our review on there. So, Two Towers.
The Ring of Doom.
There you go.
His actual ring. There you go. It works.
So, better than the first time you watched it?
Puts a whole new meaning to burning your ring after you've had a curry.
The Ring of Fire.
Yeah, they even
end with the Johnny Cash song.
This literally could have been a thing. There's so many ways it could have been done. This should be a thing. They need to make, when they did all those movies, that Epic Movie and stuff, and they were all the parody ones. They need to do one of like fantasy movie, which they didn't do. That would have been cool. And then they end it like that. Oh, that's right. Who do I talk to about this? This is good.
Right, that'll do it for our review on Two Towers. If you are discovering our review after the fact, please let us know your thoughts on the Two Towers. How do you think it holds up how do you think it holds up almost 25 years later? And let us know if it's your favourite one in the trilogy.
And it should have been Papa Lazarou with the fucking ring, because then he goes, cross your palm with silver. There's so much we could do with this.
I'm just going to let you formulate your ideas while I do the outro. Please do consider subscribing to the channel for more movie reviews, discussions, and live streams. We will be back actually on Tuesday. We'll be starting our Pixar retrospective in celebration of the 40th anniversary of Pixar Animation Studios. We've got a lot of films to get through, so that's going to be lasting us probably through to September, I think, actually. I'll be starting another retrospective in March as well. But if you're here for the Lord of the Rings stuff, we've got our Return of the King review next week, which is going to be really fun. We've got our tickets booked for that. It's going to be a long sit, but it's going to be good to finish them all off and talk about that. And that's not going to be the end of the Lord of the Rings videos throughout the rest of the year.
Why are there more moths in Star Wars? Because you have the lightsabers, there'd be like moths flying around. But there should have been, shouldn't there? Like,
oh, that was in the fucking Acolyte. Let's not talk about that. There was giant moths that got attracted by the lightsabers.
Was that a thing?
That was a thing. Yeah, that was a thing. Maybe that might be your favourite Star Wars show. Who knows? Yeah, but me and Bath Time have got like a whole bunch of other Lord of the Rings videos and Tolkien-related videos planned for the rest of the year. So if you're here for the Lord of the Rings stuff, there's going to be plenty more of it in celebration of 25 years of Fellowship of the Ring. Right, that'll do it for us. We'll see you on Tuesday. We're talking about Toy Story, and I'll be watching it tomorrow. That's going to be a trip down memory lane, so hopefully see some of you there. Have a good night, everyone.